Russell Wilson's first year in Denver was a nightmare. And if you're like me, outside looking in, you have a lot of questions as to how one of the steadiest quarterbacks of the past decade went through such a nightmare year like he did with his new team. Well, The Athletic has a new report that appears to be offering some insight. My name is Michael Smith, and this is the field position battle, where today we're breaking down the article from Kalen Collar, I believe I'm pronouncing that. I don't know. Mike Sando and Jason Jenks. They collaborated on this one. A ton of quotes from Broncos players and staffers, some anonymous, and it really paints a picture of what went wrong. To start off, the only thing I think you could consider a bombshell in this article from lead sources, they said that Russell Wilson, before he left Seattle, asked for Pete Carroll and GM John Schneider to be fired. Obviously, that request was denied, and he subsequently requested a trade and ended up in Denver. Uh, the Athletic article did note that they received a letter from Wilson's lawyer denying the claim, but I certainly think that there's merit to it. The Athletic article also talked about his first game in Denver, which was played in Seattle, where he did not have the warmest greeting with Pete Carroll. Uh, there definitely seems to be some animosity there, and listen, we've heard about it the entire time that he was in Seattle. People there didn't like him. They respected him. They put up with him because he's great, but they did not like him. And I really think the rest of this article kind of lays out some of the reasons why. There's really no more bombshells. There's nothing uh, that will stand out as devastating or tearing down a team, but it just all kind of builds up and leads to what happened in Denver this past season. Wilson got permission when he arrived in Denver from GM George Patton and former head coach Nathaniel Hackett, for his personal quarterback coach, his nutritionist, and his physical therapist to all have access to the building. They also gave him his own office, and these are just things that players around the league don't have. They talked about how Russell Wilson's office was on the second floor of the facility, where the coach's office are, where the front office offices are. And basically, players don't go up there unless they're getting released. So it creates kind of a weird dynamic. Russell Wilson apparently told players that he has an open door policy for his office, which rubbed an anonymous coach the wrong way, saying, "Are you a coach or are you a player? Your open door should be sitting at your locker." Which I do think is a fair criticism. There were players quoted in the article saying that they didn't really think the office was a problem. It seemed to be all football all the time. Russell seemed focused. But it's not just about the players, it's about the coaches. The football teams are such a hive mind that when you start throwing in different opinions, and we'll get into that in just a minute, and you just start giving one player some preferential treatment, and it really starts to tear away at the fabric of the team. And that happened from day one with Russell in year one in Denver. He also hosted State of the Union offensive meetings on Tuesdays, which are usually player off days. He also did this in Seattle, but they would watch film on the next opponent. They would talk game plan. These meetings were well attended. Uh, Players apparently received them fairly well for the most part. But Russ's personal coach, Jake Heaps, would voice his opinion in these meetings, and him and Russ would hand out scouting reports that at least one coach said that he did not always agree with. He didn't always agree with the assessments that Russ and Heaps would make in these scouting reports. And again, that just leads to too many cooks in the kitchen. There are too many opinions. If Russ is saying this, and Nathaniel Hackett is saying this, and so is saying this, and you know, you had Clint Kubiak is in the room as the quarterbacks coach, and like, who are you supposed to listen to if you're a player? If you're Jerry Jeudy, if you're, you know, the offensive line, if you're whoever, if Russ is getting in on Tuesday and saying this, and then on Wednesday we're installing this game plan, which apparently the coach does not agree with, who are you supposed to listen to? You're getting a whole ton of information thrown at you, and not all of it is necessarily applicable to what the team wants to do on Sunday. It's easy to figure out how they got miscombobulated, like early in the season when there were play clock issues. They got called for a couple of delayed games. Nathaniel Hackett at the time took blame. Some sources said that Wilson was struggling to repeat the plays in the huddle. Other sources said the coaches asked Wilson to over-communicate, make sure everybody was on the same page. Jerry Jeudy is quoted in the article as saying that Russ wasn't too long-winded in these huddles. But again, it's just, what is being said? Is he supposed to over-communicate? Is he having trouble getting plays out? Is he just not getting things out in time? There's another thing in here about him using his own cadences at random times during games that the offensive line was not familiar with. And leaders on the offensive line went to him and said, "You got to stop. You can't do this. You can't throw us off. We can't protect you. We can't do our job. And we look bad because you're not doing what's agreed upon, what is set forth in our game plan, what we practice from Wednesday to Friday, and what we get ready to do on Sunday." And it all comes back to Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coach in Green Bay when Matt LaFleur took over as head coach. Him and Aaron Rodgers did not get along at first, and there was friction, and they had to work through that and form a working relationship, and they have done that, and they have had very successful seasons. They've gotten to NFC Championship games. But Nathaniel Hackett with Russell Wilson tried to just skip to the good part, tried to just get where Russ was ready, Russ was comfortable, and it was all about Russ. That was his big thing. That was what he wanted to do. And he made Russ way too comfortable. And what ended up happening is he got fired after 15 games, which is not unprecedented, but it's not done. It's not what Denver wanted. He literally had no choice. He forced their hand. And Russ ended up agreeing at the behest of Broncos brass to not have his quarterbacks coach, to not have his nutritionist, to not have his physical therapist in the building. He also gave up his office. But in the end, he got Sean Payton, which is who he wanted to replace Carroll in Seattle when he wanted Carroll fired. And now he's got Payton in Denver. But Sean Payton has already said, we're not going to do that here. I think that Sean Payton is the right guy. I think he's going to go in and he's going to treat Russ like everybody else. And, you know, there's certain leniences that a quarterback's going to get, especially a future Hall of Famer like Russell Wilson. But I think he's going to treat Russell like everybody else. And that's going to bring that room together. That room was very clearly fractured. As, you know, has been the downfall of some of the Seahawks teams over the years. There are those that like Russ and there are a lot more that don't. So I think what Sean Payton needs to do is figure out what Pete Carroll was able to do to bring everybody together, through to multiple Super Bowls. But you got to look at the success that Pete had this past year. They went to the playoffs. Broncos went 5-12. So Sean Payton has a lot to deal with. He has a lot on his plate to get things going in Denver. But he's a future Hall of Famer himself. I think he's going to figure it out. But man, it's just a mess. I got so excited when I saw this notification from The Athletic come across my phone, because whatever you want to say about his teammates not liking him, Russell's always felt so buttoned up. And these are mistakes, and they're kind of dumb mistakes. It feels as though Russ thought he was bigger than the Denver Broncos. Like he was going to take them over the top. There's a quote in here about Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett being partners. Pete Carroll was never Russell Wilson's partner. He was his coach. Sean Payton's going to be his coach. So, with all this being said, with everything that went wrong, I do think you have to look now, moving forward, that the Broncos could be serious contenders. They could be what we thought they were going to be this year. And they can compete with Kansas City. And who knows what Vegas is going to be. And the Chargers, who knows. But I think this is the right move, because I think Sean Payton is the elixir, is the magical potion that's going to heal all of this mess. And this is a lot of mess. So if you haven't checked it out, please check out this article, because it's very good. It's very well written. It's very thorough. They definitely spoke to many, many people and got as many opinions on this as they could. And it really paints a picture of a guy that's just in over his head and doesn't realize it. He really, it's kind of funny to me that Nathaniel Hackett couldn't figure this out, because Russ in a lot of ways reminds me of Aaron Rodgers in the I'm smarter than you. I know what the right thing to do is. And you know what? Sometimes you don't. And Russell really proved that this past season. So thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. My next video is going to be about Aaron Rodgers, about everything that goes into, is it the Packers? Is it the Jets? Is it the Raiders? Is it retirement? And breaking down that decision and making my prediction for where he's going to go. So again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and thank you for watching.